Hey everybody, Curtis back at it again with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the number 29 team, the Chicago Bears. And the Bears are an interesting situation because they have a lot of young talent, but they're still going to be one of the worst teams in the league because despite all that talent, they have very little depth and very little cohesion that will lead to success on the field. Now, let's start with dead, the position where they just suck. And that would be basically the entire defense. The entire defense is going to be very bad this year. And they're going to be probably one of the worst defenses in the league. They they have some good pieces like Danny Trevathan from Denver, who is a very good player on their Super Bowl team. They have the young Leonard Floyd, but he's young. And they do have Prince Amukamara and then the young Adrian Amos. But that's not going to be enough. Their front seven is atrocious. It's pretty bad, and they also have a suspect secondary. So they're going to get beat often, and that's not a good sign for a team that's trying to make strides, especially with a young quarterback. But we'll get to that. Deep sleep, we have Mike Glennon, who just signed this offseason for a big deal. I think it was 3 years, 18 mil if I have that correctly. And he's in deep sleep because his career went up when he went from Tampa Bay to Chicago, and now it's just going down as he's dying off and fading into the sunset. Why is he fading? The man right here, who's actually it says he's number 3 in the depth chart, but he's number 2, Mitch Trubisky. He's he's gonna play this year. Like he's too good and too much talent to not play. Mark Sanchez, I can't believe he's even on a team still. Mr. Butt Fumble, he should not be on a team. But I mean, Mike Glennon is in deep trouble. Waking up a person or position group that is on the rise will be the wide receivers. They have basically a guy who's never played before but has all the talent in the world in Kevin White. And then they have Cameron Meredith, who is sneakily one of the best receivers in the league last year. Not many people noticed it because they were a terrible team, but Cameron Meredith was he was a probably top 10, top 15 receiver last year in terms of output. And not only that, but they add Victor Cruz, who, despite all his injury trouble, has had very productive years in the NFL, and Marcus Wheaton, who was an undervalued fourth receiver for the Steelers. And I always thought he was going to be super good, but he got stuck behind a great receiving core of Antonio Brown and some Martavius Bryant. It was just pretty brutal. And they also have Kendall Wright, who's underrated, I would say. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't play very much, but from what I've seen, he's not terrible. And now we're moving on from waking up, which is definitely the receivers if you just look at that, to the team the team or position group or even player that's woke. The team that's they're gonna stand out this year. And that would be the offensive line. They have a top 25 or I think it's top 10 under 25 players in the NFL, and Cody Whitehair, who's an up and rising center. They have Kyle Long, who is a perennial Pro Bowler. Josh Sitton, who's also been a perennial Pro Bowler, and not bad tackles either. They their line's going to be way better than they had been in previous seasons. In previous seasons, they've been anchored by Gabe Carimi. Like he was good in college at Wisconsin, but scrub. And he was their anchor. And they tried running 7-step drops with Jay Cutler trying to sling the ball down the field with a terrible offensive line. And that's going to completely change this year because they're going to have Mitch Trubisky and Mike Glennon, who are going to be more, I would say more dink and dunk, but they're not going to be put on as much pressure on the O line as Jay Cutler put on because he was a gunslinger, so they had to give him more time. And not only that, but they have more talent. So look for the offensive line to have a standout year this year, and I could totally see them being one of the best in the league. Now let's move on to the schedule, and their schedule is pretty tough. I mean, they do have the NFC North, which is going to be very weak, but they're the weakest team in the NFC North, so that kind of knocks that away a little bit. Now let's start with the one-on-one matchup of the year, and that's going to be Jordan Howard, the Chicago Bears running back, versus the Carolina Panthers, more specifically, the linebackers Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis Sr. The Panthers, even though they struggled last year, had one of the best linebacking cores, and if Luke Kuechly can come back and be healthy, I can't wait to watch Jordan Howard go up against them, because that's going to be a battle of the Titans. Because Jordan Howard, I think, ran for 1,000 yards last year, and he was one of the best running backs in the league. Like, he was just straight up one of the best in the league, and like, it's hard to say that about the Bears, but they just didn't have anything to put around him to help him at all. And now let's move on to the what to watch for. And I'm looking at two games actually, and they're both against the same team. The 4th week of the season against the Packers, and then the 10th week against the Packers. Whichever one Mitch Trubisky's starting. He's either going to be starting the 4th one, or he's either going to be starting the 4th game of the year, and that means he'll be starting both, or he'll only be starting one. And for the purpose of this argument, we'll say he's only starting one. I think Mitch Trubisky is a very interesting matchup against the Packers. The Packers aren't going to have a great secondary this year, and I really want to see what he can do against their rival. And the Bears always seem to play the Packers tough, and vice versa. It's never a blowout, or it hasn't been in recent years. So that's a great game to watch, and it's also the greatest rivalry in sports. Now, the turn-off game is Week 1, which comes up quick. It's the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are the #1 offense, and like I said, the dead part of the Bears is their defense. So look for a bloodbath, especially if Mike Glennon's going to be the starter, or even if Mitchell Trubisky, because that's going to be his first game. Look for it to be a bloodbath. Now, my final prediction for the record will be 4-12. Now, looking at their schedule originally, I was like, this is a 2-win team. But looking back at their roster, they don't have much for talent, but it's there. You can totally see it. So I see them pulling out a couple of games. I could totally see them beating the Ravens. I could see them beating definitely the Browns and the 49ers. But I also see them picking off 2 games in the weak division. I see them either beating one of the Packers in one of those close games, even though that's super doubtful because the Packers are always going to be a top 5 team. But I could totally see them beating the Vikings, who I think are going to be that good, even if Teddy Bridgewater's back. And beating off the Lions, who, although they made the playoffs last year, were not a playoff team. I think they won on like 8 of their games on game-winning drives, which is remarkable, but unsustainable. So the Bears are looking to have a interesting season, as you can tell, and I should be back tomorrow. I actually don't think I'll be back tomorrow. I should be back on Monday with a double upload, maybe even a triple, to get through these power rankings before the season starts. Subscribe if you want to see more. Peace.